Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Jeff, if we ever have a falling out, you know what I'm going to say?
Jeff screwed Jeff.
That's exactly right.
That's, you know what? I was trying to think of a punchline myself for that one. You beat me to it. I'm glad you did. And so, yep, if the payoff ever crashes and burns, I would hope that, you end up with a black eye and, complaining about that. Yep.
I didn't screw Jeff. Jeff screwed Jeff.
Jeff screwed Jeff. It's just, you sound like my wife.
Not to make light of this, you're newly married. I've been married for a few years now, and
yep,
trust me, it only gets better.
Yeah,
that's how you'd work it into a divorce, right?
Yep.
Like you'd sit there and say, "I didn't screw her."
That
screwed Mary.
That's I always I feel bad, but I see a lot every time a job says we wish them the best in their future endeavors. That is not a wrestling job. It's like it's all I can ever think of. It's just if someone's getting future endeavored, and so that's the other sign too. If you ever get a social media post that says best of luck to Jeff and his future endeavors, something went down on the payoff, and we're just not talking about it. So yeah. Well,
we're finally here. I feel like this is one of the pivotal moments of this podcast to cover this match.
It really is. And so this is one again. And it's funny because as we're recording this today, I just put the 60-minute Iron Man match on our schedule for or slated for next WrestleMania season as well too, because there's a lot in between there. We don't have all the matches built out yet, but that was when we're like, I think you texted me about a couple of weeks ago. We're like, just put it on the calendar. We're gonna crack some beers. We're gonna sit and we're gonna watch all 60 plus minutes of the Iron Man match. But this one, you definitely got to talk about this one too along the way because it's just so much happening. And I get it's been talked about a lot, but it's not stopping us. There's still a lot to talk about.
Oof. Well, we know why we're covering this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But why? Let me ask you this. So why are you actually looking forward to talking about this?
I think for me, this is one where as I started I enjoy looking up what was happening right in the moment in the aftermath. I think that we hear, we know what happened. That cannot be rehashed. But for me, there was too many notes for me to even include when I was looking at the Observer, when I was looking at, the Pro Wrestling Torch, just everything that was out there. And in the 72 hours after it's almost incredible how much, and we'll get there, but how little the story has changed in regards to the facts as we know them. But some of and even I was surprised, and we'll talk about it, the speculation of kind of what did exactly happen. It was funny, people didn't know. Because they didn't have a lot of those answers at that point. And so that people weren't sure. And so now we're, 25 years later plus of, kind of what we're seeing and what happened. And so I think that this is just covering this one while, we all know how the match ends and why they got to the point we did. I think that the reaction to the outside world was pretty cool. And that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, and I think for me, I just really want to just watch this match because I want to go through all the matches these guys have had. But this to me is a story of what if? What if they got along? Now, you could argue, hey, well, maybe the feud wouldn't have been so good. That's fair. But, Rock and Austin got along, but there was a healthy rivalry, and it led to some damn good matches. So I just wonder, what if they would have been able to work together? What if Bret wouldn't have left? What if Shawn wouldn't have lost his smile? The matches these guys could have had, I dare say, this could have been the greatest rivalry maybe in the history of the company.
Yep,
certainly top 5 with Austin McMahon, with Hogan Savage, some of those all-time great rivalries. Not that this wasn't, but man, you just, what could you have done with these guys? The ladder match, the Hell in the Cell match, the best of 7, whatever you do, the I Quit, the last man standing, what you could have done with these guys if they could have, worked together over a period of time and gotten along. So, man, it's just, I want to watch these guys do their thing for 25 minutes and just see how good were they in the ring, because I think I know, but we'll find out. So,
well, and going back and watching it, I'm interested to see is there any tells? Is there anything that kind of shows, like, were these guys up till this point, I think, more Shawn than Bret? Was there ever a point where he kind of let on? Did they ever let off? Because it has been a while since I've watched the match in full. And so that's why we always encourage everybody, like, go back, watch the match with us, because you never know what you're going to pick up. There could be something crazy. There could be something new. And I think that's what's exciting about this is you and I digging back in. We've got, the retrospect to go back, and there's been all kinds of things written and stuff. But we hear about it, but I haven't just sat and watched the match in years. And so it should be good. Absolutely.
Good. Well, let's get into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
As we all know, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, November 9th, 1997, 20,000 there. We're kind of height of the Attitude Era, right in the middle of it. 97 is just a great year for the WWF. WCW's clicking on all cylinders as well. Just a great time to be a wrestling fan. This show starts with a 15-minute 4-on-4 Survivor Series elimination match. New Age Outlaws and the Godwins defeating the Headbangers and the New Blackjacks. Then we get another 4-on-4 Survivor Series match, 10 minutes. The Truth Commission defeating the Disciples of Apocalypse. This is the era when everyone was in a faction.
Yep.
Then another Survivor Series match. I think this was like because 98 was that elimination tournament. So this is kind of the end of like the full card of Survivor Series matches. Team Canada, Bulldog, Neidhart, Doug Furnace, and Phil LaFawn defeating Team USA, Vader, Goldust, Mark Merrow, and Steve Blackman. Kane defeated Mankind in 9 minutes. That was Kane's definitely pay-per-view debut, but I'm assuming it was his debut of any matches. I can't remember the exact bump, but I know Foley took like a nasty bump at some point during that match. 20-minute 4-on-4 Survivor Series match. Shamrock, Ahmed, Legion of Doom defeating the Nation of Domination. Semi-main event, Steve Austin defeating Owen Hart in a Intercontinental title match. This is the return from the neck issues.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Austin's Intercontinental Championship. And then, of course, the main event. Ranking wise, we had a dud, 1.5 stars, 2.5 stars, 3 stars, 2 3/4 stars, 1 star. So the card itself, really nothing well received on this show. Storyline standpoint, Jeff, how do we get to these guys? And it took forever because remember, WrestleMania 12, we're like 18 months removed from it. Not that they didn't have their altercations, but a lot of time went by without a lot of matches. And that's where I said it would have been nice if these guys could get along because we would have saw some great wrestling matches we never got.
Yeah, and I'm glad you even brought that one up because that's where my notes start on this one was WrestleMania 12. And so that one, of course, was the eventually soon for us to cover the WrestleMania 12, Bret versus Shawn. That's where a lot of this kind of kicks off. after that, then you had, I kind of wanted to highlight just some of the bigger things that were going on. And so, because of course, there's having matches, there's things happening, but so you had the Iron Man match, and then you had the Click incident. And so you had Hall and Nash at this point leaving for WCW at this point. So leaving, of course, as we all know the story, Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was the champ, and so you can't really punish him at that point. So Triple H took a lot of the brunt of the punishment that came from the Click. You had Michaels and Sid actually at Survivor Series, and so he lost, but then winning the title back from Sid at that Royal Rumble. Of course, as we've talked about many times, vacating the title, the knee injury before 13, not wanting to wrestle Bret, not wanting to lose, all that different stuff. Then you kind of start getting into, there had always been, kind of backstage or, things about how these guys weren't getting along. But then you really started getting a little bit more personal, because then after 13, you had the Sunny Days comment, which refers to the, Bret having an affair with Sunny.
The irony, of course, is that Shawn Michaels was having an affair with Sunny.
Right, of course. And so dealing with that, and then Bret, the family man. And so, and so it's just kind of funny. You then had Shawn beating Bulldog in the UK, which was not well received by the UK fans, of course. And so, but when we're finally starting to get into this, is when we finally start to get the picture for this match itself, though. It would have been the In Your House Bad Blood, taking place October 5th, 1997. And so really just barely a month prior to this Survivor Series match, because Shawn beating The Undertaker in that Hell in a Cell match, of course, 5 stars, he became the #1 contender. This was also at a time, too, where you had the very early formation of the Generation X as well, too, as well as the reformation of the Hart Foundation as being the anti-American. They were very much the heels on this one, while DX kind of, heel, or however you want to classify them at this point. This was OG DX with Triple H, Shawn, Chyna, Rick Rude, and then getting to this match at Survivor Series. Now, something to point out, of course, too, is the rumors that Bret had signed a massive 20-year contract in 1996, but all these behind the scenes kind of weirdness that, is some of my notes. Who knows the exact reason for why Vince did what he did? Kind of whether Bret wasn't as important as he used to be. That a lot of the reports are him encouraging Bret to go to WCW, or allowing him to go to WCW, and so
that's the part we never really got. If you look at it, Vince. I feel like Vince has always soured on guys maybe too soon as opposed to too late. He was done with Hogan.
Yeah.
He was done with Savage. Mm-hmm. He was done with Bret. Again, not done with them, but hey, I don't think you're worth $1 million a year or whatever to my company. That was it, right? It's not like he thought Bret was washed up. Bret was still operating at a high level, but Vince has never been one to beg someone to stay too long.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know, especially with Triple H bringing people back nowadays, he doesn't see it, that's it. And so, it's got to be there, or else, you get your tryout, kid, and that's it. And so, Hart, though, signing that 3-year contract with WCW, part of the, another big part of this that still don't fully know everything necessarily here was exactly how the conversation went for Bret to lose the belt prior to leaving. And so the kind of the background is that Hart did not want to end his WWF career with a loss to Michaels in his home country, particularly with the context of their nationality-fueled feud, and offered to lose, forfeit, or otherwise give over the belt to Michaels in any other way that McMahon wanted. McMahon agreed to Hart's idea of forfeiting the championship the next night on Raw, or losing it a few weeks later. And so, Everything I read was, who was involved in the conversation, and, Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, you figure JR, could have been Vince as well too. The circle was very small with whatever was going to happen here. Mixed reports, of course, we'll talk about it a little bit during here, was how much did Shawn know or not know? How much did Earl Hebner know or not know? Like, I think as much as we know a lot of this story, there's a lot we don't know. And so that's why I'm excited, like I said, to watch this one and kind of see how this plays out and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm really excited to cover this one. Season 11, episode 1 on Peacock. Survivor Series 97. We're at the 2 hour and 20 minute mark. 2 hours, 21 minutes. Jeff, are you ready?
Heck yeah, man. Let's do this. I'm very ready.
Me too. Here we go. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
Does that not tell it all? Now again, he knows he's going to screw him, right? That was always the thing: was did he know? Did he not know? Are we positive he knew? Because remember, for a long time, he didn't admit it, and you could speculate, oh, he knew. I mean, look at this; these guys want to fight him. Of course, he's egging him on, which fantastic. That's what a heel should do. It's great,
right? Yep. So I guess it is a good question of what camp do you fall into here? How much did Shawn know, and when did he know it?
I mean, he knew, right? He knew how they were going to finish it. I mean, him and Hunter were part of the inner circle. There were only, 4 or 5 guys that knew. That's it. I mean, so he knew what they were going to do. And, in hindsight, it's just insane that it got to this point that Vince had to basically go out on television and, screw someone on live pay-per-view, knowing that any number of things could happen. Everyone talks about what they did, but what you don't talk about is what Bret could have done. Mm-hmm. What if Bret would have just said, I'm not going to play along with you because, you're making it difficult for me. But, I'm still of the mindset that, when the owner of the promotion says that you need to do something, you need to do it. Mm-hmm. Even if you hate the guy personally, you don't get the right to say, I'll drop the title to anyone but Shawn. I'll drop the title on Raw, but I won't drop it at the pay-per-view. You don't have that right. Yes, if it was written into your contract, I suppose you do. So I all along, again, horrible situation. You would have loved to have come to a compromise, but at the end of the day, when the promoter says that you need to do something, he didn't put him in harm's way. He wasn't, hey, I want you to lose to a jobber and get your ass kicked for 20 minutes so that you go into WCW looking weak. Hell, a compromise could have easily been DX costs Bret. Well, then Bret goes down to WCW and he's still in his prime and he still looks great. And, he has a ton of heat and there's a lot of excitement around him. So there never had to get to this point. That's the thing is Bret did screw Bret. That is what happened, because Bret is a massive mark for himself. I don't know if any wrestler in the history of the business has a higher opinion of himself and loves himself more than Bret Hart. I certainly can't think of anyone. Even to this day, you listen to Shawn Michaels in interviews and he's like, yeah, I was a pretty good performer and I'm proud of what I did. He's not sitting there saying I'm the best in-ring performer of all time. But, Bret Hart, his opinion so high of himself. So, I feel like, this all could have been avoided. But again, I understand the animosity at the time and in the moment, but the promoter should know that. And the thing is, shame on Bret because, his father was a promoter. And at no point did, people tell Stu Hart how they needed to be booked and, when they were going to drop a title. That's just not how it worked. So, very, very heated start to this. Man, it's crazy. You got Vince at ringside, Sergeant Slaughter, Stu.
They're surrounded.
Everyone's standing. Shane's there. You've got, it's just, you've got multiple refs down there.
And I think you said it earlier.
These guys both, like, this at this moment in time, neither was better in the ring. Like, this is both of their. Now, don't get me wrong. Shawn did some incredible stuff years later. But, if you look at, these two, this is their absolute prime at the exact same moment in terms of the work they did. There's just no question.
I think, too, the more controversial kind of, question to ask here is, was Bret in on it?
Yeah,
it's tough.
But when you hear that, it's easy to go, well, of course not. No, dummy. There's no way. But man, when you start thinking about it, sure, there could absolutely be a chance. Would it be better for Bret to have been screwed? Absolutely. This is the best way. If Bret was going to lose the title that night in Montreal, this is the absolute best way for Bret to lose it. Get screwed, sympathy, didn't really drop the title. Everyone's talking about him. He's hotter than he's ever been. He can go down to WCW and have a ton of material to work with. And he's the biggest star in Canada ever before. So to answer your question, if my biggest reason why you could say Bret was in it is because it was to his benefit to get screwed. It's better than anything they could have done.
Mm-hmm. And I believe, too, we're now a couple of minutes. The bell has not rung, correct? We don't think so?
I believe it is not, because you've got four
with all the refs. Yeah. They're about halfway up the entrance ramp at this point. And again, obviously the biggest Shawn Michaels mark you'll ever meet, and then a fan of Bret Hart. If you watch these two in the ring, everything they're doing is so perfect. Mm-hmm. And not perfect like, two guys in AEW now doing gymnastics. I mean perfect, like, just look at the way they're just look at this. This is as good of a pro wrestling match. This is so good. That was Shawn just hit Pat Patterson, which I don't remember that one. I'm wondering if that was because
they're all very close in real life, so I think he's kind of just ribbing them a little bit.
Yeah, they got about 4 refs here. There you go. There's a little bit of a ref bump there.
This is just what you gotta love. It's a good old fashioned fight. It's just a down and dirty.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so they now at this point they've not spent really any time in the ring. They're up at the top of the ramp now, or kind of entryway, kind of working each other. Bret throwing him over the set and stuff like that, and kind of hitting each other. Yep.
I think he has a fire extinguisher in his hand.
I can't tell.
Hit over Shawn's back. Like. They're all the way. Like. They're all the way in the back now.
They're practically in gorilla at this point. Yep.
I don't want to change the subject here, but for a minute, let me just indulge you in the history of these two wrestling together as best I've been able to put together. So, obviously they wrestled a tag match together in 1995 against the Blue Brothers. Okay. So they were both baby faces at the time. They had that Saturday night's main event where the Rockers won the tag titles, but they didn't. They just said the top rope was broke.
Yep.
You may remember that there was the beginning of the Owen Bret feud that started with Shawn Michaels and the Knights as a tag team in the Survivor Series match. Mm-hmm. So Bret and Shawn were both in that, opposing each other. They wrestled a singles match in '89 at Madison Square Garden. They wrestled a singles match at the Tokyo Dome in 1991, which is pretty wild. Okay. Or that was a tag team match with the Rockers as well. They wrestled a steel cage match. It was a Coliseum video match, while they were feuding. They did that 92 Survivor Series match when Bret was a world champion and Shawn was the Intercontinental champion. The first ever ladder match, right? The one that wasn't on TV. WrestleMania 12, of course, the Iron Man match, and this match. but again, there were so many matches they should have had that they didn't. Rematch at WrestleMania 13, a ladder match that was actually on TV. This whole thing, I mean, this would have continued, obviously. So it's just crazy to think about, man.
Yeah, so we are finally back in the ring at this point. You got Bret, after Michaels earlier had choked Bret with the American flag. You've got Bret using a flag to choke out Shawn at this point. Like I said, we are finally in the ring at this point. I don't think a single person has sat since this match. No. I say since this interaction has started. Nobody's sitting, plain and simple. Yeah. Shawn.
Well, remember, this is an era where people started to know the behind the scenes stuff. So people knew something was up. I mean, Meltzer had already put that Bret had agreed, right? So the WCW. So we knew we were watching something crazy, but what are they going to do? You can't have Bret lose, but can you?
Yeah. And so knowing that, and talk a little bit, we can talk a little bit more about that is, they knew Bret was leaving, we knew that was happening. A lot of the, why the pretense for why some of these things happened was Vince was worried that Bret was going to leave with the belt. And so he did not want him to leave with the belt. And so that was a big part of it. I do think that it probably would have been, you talked about the more recent matches that we would have gotten a rematch on, but I do think that, had it gone to plan, even if Bret had won tonight, and then even if he just dropped the title, hey, I'm out of here, just kind of forfeit the belt. And then they did something that, over the years, Bret coming back would have been, a little bit more stable, I guess is the best way. We got fans throwing shit in the ring too. Shawn doing a good job of just selling I'm an asshole. Yeah, but
because he was. I mean,
and you got fans literally on the front row, just trying to they are yelling it. Oh my god!
Your life.
Wow, look at that!
In the history of the World Wrestling Federation.
Just rabid fans. Oh man, yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't remember the fan. You got security's talking to him now. Calm down a little bit. Yeah.
If you could have saw these guys at this point, let's say they're getting along, and you could have had. I mean, how do you fancy book what this feud should have been?
Oh man, I don't know.
So let me ask you. I'll ask you an easier question. If there's one stipulation match you would have liked to have seen these guys in, what is it?
I guess they had done the ladder at this point. I think these two, maybe we did a Hell in the Cell. Maybe you start, we're starting to get into more extreme matches. I don't know. I don't know if maybe that would have worked for them. I feel like with just Bret's style, I wonder if a submission match or even I know we talked shit about it, but an I Quit match, which who knows if either of those guys would have ever agreed to something like that. But, 10 fall, whatever it might be. I think that those just a pure wrestling match would what I wanted to see versus anything with kind of weapons or anything like that. And so, that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I could watch these guys do just about any style of match or just anything. I mean, to think of the two of them in a Hell in a Cell, think of the two of them in a ladder match, in another ladder match that was televised in their prime with the world title on. I mean, God, there's just so many things you could have done with these guys.
I love the heel work from Shawn here. Literally, those guys are in the front row. And then literally 15 seconds later, he dumped Bret right out in front of him. And then they started brawling right in front of those guys. And so talk about just, put aside what we know is about to happen pretty soon here. The character work of being there and having no clue what they were about to do. Man, just that is nuclear heat at that point. That is Roman beating the Undertaker. These guys just absolutely hate each other. And that's all you know. Yep.
Well, and compare this match to the Hogan Shawn Michaels one where Shawn Michaels was bumping all over and acting like a ball.
Yep.
Here's one of the things that's really interesting about this. So Shawn knows Bret's leaving. He knows that they're going to screw him at the end of the match. Bret is on guard. He knows he's leaving the company. These two absolutely hate each other in their personal lives.
Mm-hmm.
And how good is this match?
Yeah.
Like, that's what's scary about this. There's a lot of times where two guys get in the ring and they don't get along and there's no chemistry and, they have a shitty match and stink up the joint. These guys are just so good that the match is excellent, even though everything points to it's sucking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shawn is not overselling anything. Like I do kind of wonder in the back, like, was he playing it down a little bit, so it didn't look like he was trying to, there was shenanigans or anything like that. And so, yeah, I got to wonder that a little bit of that too, but, really good wrestling at this point. Like both guys just really putting it out there, not knowing what's about to happen though. Bret just so technical, so fast, like just incredible. Yep.
Excellent. I forget. I don't know if it was Shawn or Triple H, but one of them, not that long ago, or I just listened to it. It might have been an old interview, but said that that Vince McMahon's instructions were, if I ever have a heart attack and die while a show's going on.
In Gorilla. Yep. I read that too. Yep.
The instructions are you continue the show.
Yep.
You just leave me sitting there.
Yep. I read that same thing too recently, like that.
What is he doing right now?
I was just going to say, it's been very quiet. Like, I know the old stories to be up at 4 a.m. working out. I'm wondering, is he still on that 4 a.m. schedule? Like, I'm sure him and Linda aren't sitting on the couch watching Netflix, or watching Peacock or something like that. I just kind of,
is he this is all such a mystery to me, and maybe he'll clarify at some point, but is he watching
that's what
every Raw and SmackDown live?
Yeah.
Are they giving him access to some feed where it doesn't go to commercial and he has the satellite feed? Is he still, calling some of the shots of hey, do this, don't do this? I mean, I have no idea. Or is it the opposite? Maybe he's found peace and he's I should have retired 5 to 10 years ago. It kind of passed me by. I'm ready to move on with my life. And, I'm going to start golfing this spring. I mean, who the hell knows? The guy's nuts. You've no idea, but it'll be fascinating to eventually him come out and just, or not, or maybe you never hear from the guy again. Is he going in the Hall of Fame this year? Is he not going in the Hall of Fame this year?
Is he a golfer? I don't even know.
No, he has no hobby. They said one time they mentioned somebody made a reference to oh yeah, it's that one time George said that. Who's George?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's Seinfeld. Well, what's Seinfeld? No, Jerry Seinfeld's a television show. Oh, okay. He doesn't have any understanding of pop culture or television, so who the hell knows what he does? He has no hobbies. Maybe he'll be in great shape.
I remember Bret's working the knee at this point too, so you're kind of working toward that sharpshooter. And remember too, when we were at the Performance Center at the time, I don't know if you're still there. Remember they had the cameras. There were those two cameras that were right in that center of the one wall, and they were saying at any point, Vince, it's a direct feed for Vince or Triple H, so they could pop in at any point and see what's going on in the Performance Center. And I wonder, who had to be the employee that had to turn off Vince's, remove his access or something like that? Or did they not? Is he still got that? Does he even still have an office in the headquarters? Is that dinosaur? How you would think we would know if they were moving that dinosaur head out of the damn office, and so, and aren't they building a new headquarters too? And so you've got that. And so, yeah, who knows? Who gets to take over Vince's, old new office at this point? So yeah, just great. So you've got great selling here by Shawn. Bret kind of locked in here with, what do we got here? I can't even tell with the angle. And Shawn though, yeah, kind of a modified figure 4. but breaking the ropes right away.
Goes to the ropes, which causes a break. That was all advantage Bret.
Both guys down. Both guys pretty beaten up.
Great job selling. Yeah, from both guys. Real technical from Bret, which is what I would hope to see. Yeah, very good stuff.
Bret just wailing away in the corner. Shawn really selling the knee. What an interesting. What a great match.
I don't think Shawn has gone for a pinfall yet. I think that Bret has gotten all of them to this point.
Yeah.
You don't really see, like, there is not the kind of shenanigans on ringside anymore. They're not really showing anybody anymore, like Vince or any of those people.
The era when they had the photographers. There's like 5 or 10 or whatever photographers around the ring too, which
great stuff.
Horrible idea.
I appreciate the kids sitting front row with Sting face paint or face mask on as well too.
All he wants to do is suplex. Again, showing great tenacity, is able to kick out so many of these 20,593 fans standing.
Say again, I couldn't hear you.
There's a backbreaker.
I said you have people standing, but then you also have. It's pretty quiet right now. It's like people are just like waiting. Like, what in the hell's going to happen? Like, how are you going to end this? You know,
there's those bros right there across on the hard cam that have not sat down yet. There's a group of. Here we go, ref bump. That group of like 15 bros that are sitting directly across that have not moved
yet. Referee hit head. Is that a disqualification? It might be if he could get up and call it.
There it is.
And again, Michael's raking the face. Look at this! Oh, you're kidding me. Michael,
Shawn stepping through.
You're going to try to beat Bret Hart with a sharpshooter? Yes, he is! Are you kidding me? What happened? What happened? Bret Hart gave up with a sharpshooter.
I will tell you that if you watch that thinking that everyone was in on this, you can tell Shawn's acting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What I think they should have done, I get the idea of like, I actually think they should have just ran with it from the start, where like Shawn just held him in it as long as he could and then didn't act surprised when he got, shot out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I actually think it would have been better if Shawn just held on to it, and then, we screwed you, pal, and then took his belt and took off. So, well, there you go. Let's get into the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
What'd you think?
I just kind of sitting here watching it at the very end. It's really incredible to me, that the final, after the bell rung, it was a very muted reaction. Like, we had it on, go back and watch it as well too. Like, they were so hot through the match. And then I think the pure shock of it, like, oh my God, Shawn just won, really kind of deflated. Like, there was a little bit of a pop, but it was not like raining down boos or anything like that, because of course Bret didn't actually tap out, so we didn't see that. And so there was, like, we talk about who was involved and things like that. Some of the reports, things I was reading was, of course, you saw Gerald Briscoe like running into the back. You had Shawn grabbing the belt right away and going toward the back. Triple H coming out. Like, you got to wonder if that was a little bit more enforcement at that point. Like, Shawn probably should have stayed in the ring. Like, that probably would have disconnected him. I think it would have disconnected him a little bit more and, been able to be like, no, I wasn't involved. Like, let Vince hand the belt, or like, that's the other thing is like, you wonder like how much, like Earl was gone. We know that, like Hebner got out of there real quick, even after taking the bump, but then Shawn grabbing the belt and knowing I'm going to get the hell out of here and go to the back right away, because if Bret had grabbed it or something like that, like who knows what would have happened. Now, of course, in the very quick aftermath, and it is very interesting now though, is that we did see Bret spit on Vince, which of course that's the story, is everybody knows that. Now they did cut, at least on Peacock, it does not have the footage of him making the WCW sign. And so, as we know, that was a big part of what happened in the aftermath here is he was standing in the ring and then using his finger, he made WCW in the air. And so this is where we start going down the conspiracy theory type road, which I love on this one. But, asking the question of, obviously the producer backstage, whoever it was, had to know to cue Shawn Michaels' music up. And so whoever that was had to know that Michaels was going to win, because having that, it just kind of like it played right away. So having that, and then also like at the time when we've seen the footage, it's out there like that. It kind of leads toward the, how much did they know, or how much did Bret know? Because under normal circumstances, if it's Kevin Dunn, whoever it is, would never have left the camera on him while he was making the WCW signal on WWE, WWF TV. And so it just wouldn't happen. And so now, do I think that at the time, was that probably an error? Yeah, if you're going to, not believe that Bret was involved. But I think that there's so much happened in that right quick little aftermath that it's just kind of crazy. So I'll talk real quick. So we know a lot of the rest of the story, of course, that, going backstage, you had Bret threatening to hit him, like Vince kind of going in. He did get hit, like dropped him. We've heard that story. Shawn lying about the fact that he was involved. You had Hebner getting out of there as quickly as possible. More recently, Hebner has said, like, I'm done lying about it. Like, he's just, after 20 years, he doesn't want to lie, and kind of what played out. And he's like, yeah, it got screwed, like all this other stuff. And so, yeah, I think it's just, he left for WCW. This is how it all played out. Like, we've all heard that story a million times, so I don't need to, cover that in depth. But yeah, I think that there's just, it's almost funny because any other, like, I say sport or sport entertainment, like we would have the answers to something like this. And at this point, we're, 25 years later, we really just still don't, like, it's almost comical to me that there's still, we're getting worked. Like we don't know all the answers. Like, and I'll talk a little bit about it in the write-ups and stuff like that. It's just crazy to me how, is this the greatest work of all time? Who knows? But yeah, what thoughts do you have before I kind of talk about the match, what happened after a little bit more? Yeah.
Yeah, I just, God, there's just so many things that you're like, I can't think of another match where, like, at the end there were so many different things I'm trying to, like, think about and figure out and give thought to. Like, one of the things I'm thinking is, like, that Vince had no idea what was going to happen in terms of him becoming the Mr. McMahon character. And I say that because if he had any inkling of thought that I'm going to be an on-air character, I'm going to be a bad guy, well, what would you have done? Ha ha, I screwed you, pal. Get out of my company, you son of a bitch, right? Mm-hmm. And it actually would have been way better. Like, that whole thing would have been far, like, that's part of why it's like people didn't know how to react. It's like, what the hell did I see? Because it made no sense. But it's like, again, if you knew, hey, I'm going to be a heel character, I'm going to get heat on Austin, whatever, then you would have just been like, I screwed Bret, I got him out of my company, I own this company, I'll do whatever in the hell I want, you better not cross me, boo, like, right?
Yep.
So they had no idea what they were doing. The other thing, and I mentioned this before, but I would have had, like, I know Vince was like, I'll take the heat. Everyone else pretend they didn't know. But it's like, obviously it was going to come out. So Shawn should have just embraced it in the moment, held that sharpshooter as long as possible so it looked like he actually gave up. Then you walk away, you take your belt, you go bye-bye to Bret. You're a bigger heel because you were in on it and you screwed him out of the championship. Right. Like that, I don't like, and again, it's easy 2020 hindsight all these years later, but like everyone involved should have just owned it. It would have been better for entertainment and it would have just saved everyone time. Hey, Bret, you wouldn't do the job. So Shawn and Hunter and Vince and Pat and whoever else, we all had to get the title off of you. And we're going to do what's best for the company, what's most entertaining for the fans. That's what it was. It's now over with. It's all out there. Pack your shit up and leave the company. Like, why did Bret, why did Vince owe Bret anything? Oh, I'm going to let you punch me. Oh, I'm going to pretend that no one knew. Like, everyone involved should have just owned it, shown Bret the fucking door, and just been done with it. Like, it's over. What do you owe this guy? Again, it's one night in his career. All you want him to do is lose to someone in a schmoz fashion so that the belt's off him and he can, ride on to the next phase of his career. And we'll part friends and maybe you'll come back and retire here someday. So I just, everything about this was handled so poorly. The professional way it was handled, the entertainment way it was handled, everything should have been done differently. So just my opinion. Like, I actually have no issue with the screw job. I think you should have really owned what you were doing instead of that kind of like fake look.
Half-assed it to get out of there. Yeah. Maybe on Vince's deathbed, he'll be like, I screwed Bret. Like, and that's it. That's his last words. Like, who knows? So real quick, of course, Michael's dropping the European title to Triple H because he was actually the European champion at this time going into this match. He messes back up at Royal Rumble. Of course, there was the casket match with The Undertaker. He ended up dropping the title to Austin at Mania with, of course, Tyson being the enforcer, which we've talked about that match before. So this one, the numbers say here, Hart signed a 3-year contract with $2.5 million with $1 million, which was $1 million increase over the WWF. $2.5 million per year was $1 million increase per year over what WWF was offering at the time. A lighter schedule, more creative control. Of course, Hogan, and though everybody, he was never really getting that creative control. And so he actually made his Nitro debut. It was December 15th, 1997. He was still under a non-compete clause at that point, but or it's like a non-wrestle clause, but he was still able to go and show up. And after getting screwed, that makes sense. So okay. Bret was a 20 on a PWI. Shawn was 18 on this one. So
okay. There were 17 people on the planet that were better professional wrestlers in 1997. Get the fuck out of here.
So, and let me Dean Malenko was number 1 in 1997. And Austin, DDP, Luger, Undertaker, The Giant, Kevin Nash, Kenta Kobayashi, Owen Hart. This is just no. And so I do think we had most hated and stuff like that. And so there were some other awards that they were coming in at number 1 on that one. And so I'd have to kind of scroll back through a lot of that stuff. And so let's see here. So this was 97. I'm just kind of real quick before we get into it a little bit more here. Lex Luger was actually the wrestler of the year that year, which feels odd. 97, the Outsiders were the tag team. Match of the year in 97 was the Bret Hart, the WrestleMania 13 match. And so with these guys, and so feud of the year 97, DDP and Randy Savage. So this is just kind of weird how these he played most wrestler of the year, or most hated wrestler was Bret. Yep. And so anyways, so okay. I agree with you. Yeah, what the fuck? All right. So the Torch on that. So I'll start with both gave it 3 3/4 stars, the Torch and the Observer newsletter on this one. I'll start with the Torch. Bret Hart walked into the ring Sunday night at Survivor Series in Montreal expecting to walk out with the WWF title. Instead, Shawn did. Vince McMahon, frustrated with his inability to convince Bret to drop the title before WCW announced their acquisition of Bret on national TV, devised a plot to wrest the belt from Bret without his consent. Afterward, because of his anger, Bret punched McMahon in the locker room minutes after the match, giving McMahon a black eye and a sore jaw. There is also controversy whether Michaels was in on it. He is claiming ferociously that he wasn't in on it. Very few are believing his story. Just over a week after news broke that Bret Hart planned to leave WWF for WCW, the WWF's motivation for that was in question. Did the WWF encourage him to leave purely for financial reasons because they felt that they were overpaying him? Did they encourage him to leave because they wanted to invest in Shawn Michaels as their top star? And since he and Bret couldn't get along, they had to get rid of Bret. Did they need to improve the profitability of WWF in case McMahon decided to sell a minority interest in WWF to several private investors or in a public stock offering? Or was McMahon clearing away obstacles financially or ego for an eventual return of Hulk Hogan? No matter what the motivation, it was indisputable that the WWF wasn't disappointed Bret left, and Bret was eager to leave. In other words, the splitting of the two sides was mutual. In fact, it was cordial to a degree. It was cordial until McMahon and Bret butted heads over the finish of Survivor Series. Michaels told Bret in the locker room afterward that he wasn't in on it and that he didn't even want the WWF title. He said that in order to show he meant what he was saying, the next night on Raw, he wouldn't bring the title belt out with him and he wouldn't gloat about winning given the circumstances. However, the next night he brought the belt out with him and gloated. The double cross finish in Montreal will be talked about for years. It will also take years for McMahon to regain many people's trusts. The Observer on this one, it will go down in history as the single most famous finish of a pro wrestling match in the modern era. 20 or 30 years from now, this story, that's funny, more than any famous wrestler jumping promotions, more than any prominent death, and more than any record-setting house will be remembered vividly by all who watched it live and remembered it as legendary from those who hear about it later. Through the magic of videotape, the last minute of this match will live forever and will be replayed literally millions of times by tens of thousands of people, all looking for the most minute pieces of detail to this strange puzzle. I think, so it's hard to score this one, but I will say, just talking about the reviews, I feel like they are dead on. Obviously, Meltzer hit it like square on the head on this one. I did think the Torch raised some interesting kind of questions, though, of asking, like, what was the motivation here? Like, okay, sure, it was money to a degree, but also, like, did he think he was getting Hogan back? Like, kind of what were some of the behind the scenes motivations for some of these things to be happening? And so I did find it funny. He's like, yeah, things were cordial until they screwed him. And so, so I don't know, like, thoughts on the reviews. Let's start there before we kind of get a score of any kind.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. I think I've made my opinion pretty clear that I put this one on Bret really solely. Mm-hmm. You can feel bad that, hey, he signed a contract and then Vince told him he didn't want to pay him anymore. Mm-hmm. Okay. So he went to WCW, and I think for $3 million a year for 3 years, a hell of a lot of money to work less dates, far easier schedule. And, oh, by the way, Vince basically allowed him to use the WWF as negotiation. So they drove up the price. So Vince absolutely did right by Bret. Hey, I could pay you a lot less, but if you can go get a better offer and do what you need to do. So what more do you want from Vince? Oh, he should pay this guy for the next 20 years. Well, you know what? He couldn't, and he had to cut him, and no issues there. Shawn, what are you going to do? Hey, my boss wants me to go do that. I'll go do it. So the only person that I think was wrong in this situation is Bret Hart. Mm-hmm. I actually think it's pretty black and white. I don't normally say that. Usually I say things are shades of gray, but this is pretty clear that this was on Bret Hart and only on Bret Hart. I think for as complicated as we make this situation, and it's been talked about ad nauseum for decades now. Let me make it simple for you. Vince did right by Bret. Bret wouldn't do his job. End of story, that simple. Bret doesn't get to negotiate how he goes out or how his character is used inside of this fictional environment. You can have input. You can suggest things. So, yeah, that's there. The match, I mean, it's just like, how talented these guys are in the ring, but that you're just getting kind of a bullshit match that, which again, so the you could tell. That's why I'm like, if you put these guys in an environment where they both wanted to perform and neither of them was leaving and they kind of got along well enough that they at least respected each other, these guys, this could have been one of the greatest feuds of all time. These could have been the greatest matches of all time. It's a story of what could have been. And the fact that it wasn't is no one's fault. It's no one's fault that Bret left. It's this whole thing happened because of Bret. That's it. That's what I got for you.
Okay. Good stuff. Are we going to give it a score? Do you even want to? I feel like we don't need to.
Yeah, we will, because we've done it like 170 times so far.
We have. Yeah.
Actually, that's like right around where we're at.
You hit it right on the head. Yep.
Yeah. So I'll give this an 8 because it's like the craziest thing that's ever happened, but it could have been executed a lot more. So that's where I'm at on this. What about you?
Yeah, I'm actually at a 9 because it's so like monumental to the wrestling industry. I almost actually gave this a 10 because there's no bigger moment, I feel like, in wrestling and kind of what happened. And so, yeah, I feel like this is one where it's just, it's hard to score it in any way because of what it is. It was technically a good wrestling match and kind of what happened and stuff like that. It's just insane. And so, just good stuff all around though. Like I said, we could do this match in a year and have a totally different opinion too. And so it's just, of kind of how this played out. And there's oddly enough, even in 2022, we're still getting, new facts of what happened and how things have played out. And there's all kinds of books out there and things like that. And, there's documentaries as well too. The Dark Side did a thing. There was their own documentary. So, if you want more on this match, there's no shortage, but I feel like we have definitely covered our bases on this one today though.
Agreed. A lot of fun. I'm glad we covered that.
Yeah, finally, I'm glad we got to it. And so, yeah,
let's plug our shit real quick.
Yes, of course. So don't forget, we went this whole time. We haven't talked about it. Don't forget manscaped.com. We got 20% off and free shipping, everything in the store. They're using that code payoff20 at manscaped.com. And then if you're looking for some of the best t-shirts around, you got trueclassic.com. Using our promo code there, payoff25. We're getting you 25% off, free shipping, anything over $100. And so they got more than t-shirts as well too. They got all kinds of good stuff in the store. And so no matter what you're looking for, especially with the holidays coming up, we're getting closer and closer. Put those orders in. You get everything you need to you, gifts, all that good stuff before the holidays. So make sure to check that out at manscaped.com, payoff20, trueclassic.com, payoff25. Tom, send them home.
We appreciate you listening. We're excited for next week. We're stepping into the Hell in a Cell.
Woo. Sticking with Survivor Series. Yep.
Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week on an all-new episode of The Payoff.